I'm going to talk about how to get better performance out of your Talica A's. That's from the 12 size, the 16, 20, and 25 A's. They all have the same issue and they're almost exactly the same inside. This is going to be a really quick video, straight to the point. I'm not going to talk about maintenance or any of the other systems on these reels. I have found these to be pretty bulletproof after working on a lot of them, nearly 20 of them, from new ones to used boat reels. I had one of the very first ones delivered in the US, and it was, to be completely honest, crap. It took me a while to figure this out, but I think I've got it dialed in, and the issues that I've seen are pretty much always the same. Side plate is solid, no issues. Frame, nothing really to talk about here. You can see I like to keep mine very clean. In fact, this reel is nearly new, but I always keep mine degreased, and I clean them frequently. So, but you want to make sure you've got no salt, corrosion, or especially grease in here. Any place that can contact between the frame and the shoulders of the spool, that will slow you down, and that's what this video is all about. All of the issues happen in here. All of the issues are, they're correlated, free spool and drag output. If you have problems with either one, the issue is the same. It's just a matter of spacing. Okay, on the 12s and 16s, this drag shield that I'm pulling off comes off with 4 screws. On the 20s and 25s, it's 6 screws, but everything else is identical. Shimano puts an O-ring between here, between the outer fiber drag washer and the drag cover. I don't like them. They always will, at least in a very small amount, diminish free spool. There's always a tiny bit of friction there. I don't like them. They cause problems when I'm testing reels. I just don't get the benefit of them, so I remove them. But just be aware, if you keep yours in there, it needs to stay clean, oiled, and it needs to be installed correctly. They get installed incorrectly a bunch. There's usually there's always another O-ring right in this groove. That's another one I remove, but that's up to you. Plastic drag shield. I'm not even going to reassemble this reel. I'm just going to show you what the issues are. This is the outer fiber drag washer. You can see it's got a couple of pins there. It's got a bearing in there. That'll be a greased bearing. That bearing doesn't receive a great deal of pressure. This is what they use instead of Belleville washers now, that wavy disc spring. So here's really the whole thing. This reel's already been optimized, and we're gonna go through what we need to do that. But in a nutshell, what we're looking for is to be able to spin the spool, and the inner fiber drag washer either barely moves or doesn't move at all. That is while this spring is in place and I'm pressing down on it a little bit. That will increase the amount of clearance. There I'm pressing down on the spring. Here I'm not, and you can see it moves a little bit. So this reel is actually adjusted perfectly, and that adjustment simply comes down to one thing. This inner fiber drag washer here needs to go out this way as far as possible, but without touching this metal drag plate. That's the whole thing. On a lot of these reels, the spacing here will be insufficient. That inner fiber drag washer will be way in there. There'll be a lot of space between these two components, and your reel, while it may free spool, as soon as you ramp up the preset button or knob, you're not going to have drag output, and your free spool will be diminished. If the inner fiber drag washer is touching the drag plate, you will have fantastic drag output, but you won't have shit for free spool. So it's a combination. I know Shimano's been working on this just because of the different configurations that I see inside of these reels. Different amount of spacing. They've changed the bearings around on a few occasions, trying to get this right. They obviously need to satisfy a really wide audience, but what I'm doing here is what Southern California fisherman wants for particularly for live bait performance, but it applies to everything. I've heard some of the nighttime bluefin guys really complain about performance. Okay, so I just pulled out these 6 screws. There's 6 of them on the 12s and 16s. Excuse me, 4 of them on the 12s and 16s and 6 on the 20s and 25s. This is your metal drag plate. It only goes in one way. So I usually make a mark. I didn't make a mark here, but I usually just put a little Sharpie mark on here so I know which way it goes. But this is the upside. Okay, one more thing before I forget is these little bastards. I don't know if you can see that. They're little, there we go, little springs. There's 4 of them. Once again, there'll be more on, there'll be 6 on the 20s and 25s, and you can see this little guy's trying to escape. Get back in there, sucker. Okay, when this reel is new, these things will fly all over. They were put in the holes. They fit into a depression in the spool. Put some grease in there. That way, the next time you pull this thing apart, they're less likely to move because they will go everywhere. Looking for them in cushions on long-range boats is a joy. Okay. Let's see what we got here. There we go. Okay, once again, I've already optimized this reel. I'm familiar with what's going on in it. There's a spacer sleeve. Here's your spool bearing. Now, it's up to you. I tested these bearings and they were excellent, so I didn't mess with them. But the reality is I generally will pull the bearing shields out of these and then degrease them. Sometimes you will find these are oiled, and sometimes you will find that they have silicone-based grease. The silicone-based grease is really difficult to remove. I would never try and remove it without removing the bearing shields. The bearing's just not gonna work if you don't. So I found these reels with spool bearings without shields and some with. There's another one on this side that I'm not going to show you. There's not much going on over here on this side. There's not too much that you can really screw up. But at this stage of the game, before we go to shims, install your bearing, hold the spool horizontally, and spin it. It should spin for a long time. It should be really, really smooth. I'm talking a couple of minutes. If it doesn't, stop, fix your spool bearing issue, because it's only going to get worse from here. It'll never be this good again. So make sure it's really good outside of the spool, or outside of the reel, excuse me. Okay, so I already know what this reel needs. This is 0.6 millimeters of shims. This is the perfect amount for this reel, but the thing that I want to stress is every reel is different. I find them that need like 0.2 millimeters of shims. Did I get both of those on there? I'm trying to work around my phone. I found them that need 0.2 millimeters of shims. I found them that need 6. So you never know. You can get shims from Shimano, but I highly recommend that you get them off of eBay or Amazon. They come from China. The reason I recommend them is I can get them in various thicknesses. So I get them in packs that, I don't know, they have like 30 or some shims in each one, 0.1 millimeter, 0.2 millimeter, and 0.3 millimeters. That is the thickness of the shim. The diameters of the shim are also in millimeters, and they are measured at 7 millimeter by 9 millimeter by the thickness of the shim. So if you get the 0.1, 0.2, 0.3s, you can adapt to any reel very quickly. And it's critical. You have to get that right. You're wasting your time if you don't. Your reel's never going to perform unless you get the proper shims in. And honestly, it's different on every reel. Milling standards on these spools isn't perfect, nor the shafts. That can change. So your shims are all about adjusting, once again, that distance for the inner fiber drag washer, how far in it goes or how far out it goes. That's the whole deal here. That's all you need to know, is get that correct. And I'm not going to reassemble the reel. You've already seen what a well-tuned reel will do when it comes to free spool and contacting this, the inner fiber drag washer contacting the metal drag plate. Once again, if that inner fiber drag washer, there's not enough shims, it'll free spool great with no preset. But you ramp up the free spool or the preset knob, and it will neither give you drag or free spool. If you have too many shims, what happens is it will be contacting the metal drag plate. You'll have great drag but no free spool. So you need to find that zone, and I stress that it comes down to 0.1 millimeter, whether your reel will function really well or not. One other thing, the last thing, the fiber drag washers have issues. They're so small that you'll start to get fraying on them. And these are greased fiber drag washers. So if there's too many of those frays, they're just going to contact and cause you problems. So pick them out, cut them off, clean it up as best you can. Good luck.